Welcome to your Access Point to Washington. I'm Aisha Tanzim. Pakistan's former president and military dictator General Pervez Musharraf is planning to return to the country as a politician this time. He wants to compete in the upcoming elections. So earlier this week, I sat down with him for a long chat. We talked about his plans. We also talked about the recent allegations against him by some senior retired army officers and also Pakistan's position in the world post-2014. Let's watch. Mr. President, welcome to VOA.
Thank you.
Now, Pakistan has been in the limelight for the last many years, ever since September 11th, and now NATO is withdrawing from Afghanistan. Do you think Pakistan will lose that attention of the world?
I don't think so, because the region is very significant, and Pakistan's geography itself gives it a lot of strategic importance. So even though there is a withdrawal from Afghanistan, but I think the concern of the world with what follows after quitting Afghanistan it will always remain.
Pakistan has been looked through a prism of terrorism and war against terrorism. How would you like the world to now look at Pakistan?
Well, they should look at Pakistan as a very critical country in the region. It is said that that region is also a nuclear flashpoint. There is the issue of terrorism and extremism. So I think we should be seen as a very important player in the region.
You talked about terrorism and extremism, and Pakistan's military has recently revised its doctrine, and now, rather than having India as the #1 enemy, they've talked about terrorism and extremism as a bigger danger. How big of an impact would that make in Pakistan's relationship with the world in general and internally?
No, I think the environment in a region, environment in any country does not remain static, and responses change with change in environment. Today there is terrorism and extremism. Today there is the issue of Afghanistan, Taliban, Al-Qaeda. So therefore, obviously the focus of the military is towards that. But that doesn't mean that they don't have any focus over external threat from the east. Now, even today, we know that there has been tension on the line of control. So the focus of the army immediately shifted to that side. So if that raises its head again and more tension, then again the focus will shift towards the external threat. But then maybe they have to divide their attention. So it cannot be said that now the army has totally and permanently shifted its focus towards terrorism and extremism. That is not the case.
Since you mentioned LOC, there were tensions, as you said today, there were tensions before, then they kind of cooled down. Do you think those kinds of tensions have the capacity to escalate into a wider conflict?
I don't think under the present circumstances where both militaries are strong enough Pakistan's military is strong enough to deter aggression in the conventional sense. But other than that, even in the unconventional mode, there is the area is called nuclear flashpoint. That should deter any major conflict in the region. So I don't think there is a possibility of a major conflict, but localized skirmishes, actions remain possible.
So I'll come back to that localized skirmish thing, but I want to focus on Afghanistan for now. America's withdrawing troops, NATO's withdrawing troops. White House even indicated when President Karzai was here a zero-troop option. What do you think is the right formula? How many troops need to remain in Afghanistan to maintain stability?
Well, this is a very important question. As I see Afghanistan in 2014, if US and coalition troops withdraw lock, stock and barrel, I personally feel the Taliban will sweep Afghanistan, and the Afghan National Army will not be able to sustain their pressure. However, if they leave some force, which means in support of the Afghan National Army, in the form of air and helicopter gunships and
And how
special
much
forces.
force would you recommend to U.S. if they asked you?
That needs evaluation. I wouldn't be able to give an off-the-cuff answer to that. It needs evaluation. But if they leave this force in support of the Afghan National Army, then I think maybe the future, almost the status quo position as it is today, will remain in the future also. No win, no loss situation. So these are the two options. There are two possibilities beyond 2014.
Now, new Afghan peace plan has emerged. You probably have read about it in the news, and that's giving Pakistan almost a seat, a driving seat. And that some people are also suggesting that that peace plan is giving the Taliban the south and the east. Would that not lead back to the 90s-like situation with the Taliban trying for more? Do you think that might work?
Well, Taliban, and more than Taliban, I would say Pakhtuns of Afghanistan, who form about 50% of the population, have to be given a predominant role in governance in Afghanistan. And in that, I think Pakistan's role, certainly because of its geographic contiguity and its ethnic linkages with Afghanistan, especially in Balochistan and frontier, Pakistan must be considered the most serious player in this initiative. And I would say, whereas in the past, India was coming up as a player in the region in Afghanistan, I think that would be a very big folly.
So you have also said in some of your interviews that India is trying to make an anti-Pakistan government in Afghanistan, and Pakistan has the right to deter that. Do you foresee a proxy war between the two countries in Afghanistan post-2014?
Possibility is there, yes.
How high of a possibility are you talking about?
I would say reasonably high, because India certainly is. I didn't say that they are installing an anti-Pakistan government. I said they are trying to create an anti-Pakistan Afghanistan.
Okay.
Where the Afghanistan orientation would be more towards India, whereas actually the borders and ethnic, religious, cultural linkages are with Pakistan. But unfortunately, this game has been going on right since the early 50s, where the Soviet Union, India, and Afghanistan always colluded and created issues like Greater Balochistan, Pakhtunistan stunts against Pakistan. So this similar game is going on.
But Afghans say the same about Pakistan, that Pakistan tried to create a pro-Pakistan government, and they give the example of Taliban, and they say that also created problems in their country.
I think that is absolutely wrong. As I said, since the 50s, we know the history of the area, and nobody can deny that Pakistan always faced this kind of a collusion between India, Soviet Union, and Afghanistan from the western border. This is nothing new that I am saying, since the 50s. And to accuse Pakistan, obviously when you are doing this against Pakistan, Pakistan has to take steps to safeguard its own interest.
So let's move on to, if there's a proxy war, would that mean tensions between the two neighbors would go up again, and these whole peace plan initiatives that are in the works right now?
Certainly it will not augur well for the future. Nobody should interfere in Afghanistan. Let Afghans decide their own fate. Pakistan or India, both should remain out of it. But unfortunate reality is that India does start doing, as I said. And another fact that I would like to say here, diplomats, Afghan diplomats, their intelligence people, their military men go to India for training. Not one has come to Pakistan for training for any inexplicable reason. Whereas we had offered, in my time, totally free of cost, we opened our doors for all training institutions.
Okay, so here's my question. You say they go to India for training, even though you've offered it. And then you also say, but they have better relations with Pakistan. They have historical linkages. That doesn't make sense.
No. Who said that they have better? I'm saying that India and Soviet Union colluded and created an anti-Pakistan Afghanistan. I have never said that. Historically, since the 50s, there has always been an anti-Pakistan activity from our West.
An effort to
always.
create.
I've never said that we've had...
Let's move on to more issues. You talked about skirmishes on LOC and the potential or in your opinion, not the potential. Kargil was one such skirmish during your time. Some new information has emerged. You must have heard the name Lieutenant General Shahid Aziz, the former Chief of General Staff. He was the DG and head of analysis wing of ISI during your time. Some very damning allegations against you. I will read some of those out from his book. You've always said that that war was started by the Mujahideen. He has said there were no Mujahideen, only taped wireless messages which fooled no one.
Well, I think, first of all, I would like to, after 12 years, I don't know why we are entering into a discussion over Kargil. Now, Kargil happened. It was of great advantage to Pakistan. Now, as far as I am concerned, Kargil is a localized affair of FCNA, Frontier Corps Northern Area. And that comes under one Major General. Over him, there is a Lieutenant General, the 10 Corps Commander. Over them is the CGS and DGMO who analyze.
All of that, but
so it's not the Army Chief directly getting involved.
I'll tell you why we're talking about Kargil 12 years later. A, because the Nawaz League is now saying, because of all this new information coming out, that if you go back to Pakistan, because of that, there needs to be high treason against you. They're saying that. So that's why we're bringing Kargil back up. Another reason why we're bringing Kargil back up is, according to the Lieutenant General, Kargil should not have been a localized affair. That Kargil, because there had been no violation of LOC since 1971, that the Corps commanders should have been informed, and him, as the head of the analysis wing, should have known so he could give his analysis. He said only 4 people knew. That would be you, Lieutenant General Muhammad Aziz, the Chief of General Staff at the time, Lieutenant General Javed Hassan, and Lieutenant General Mahmood Ahmad, who was the Northern Commander at the time. He said that that was unconventional for Pakistani military.
Absolutely, absolute nonsense. Why is this gentleman talking about it now? As I said, Kargil is a local area of FCNA, right? And this is commanded by DG FCNA. Now he was General Javed Hassan, who was a Major General. And over him, at that time he was a Major General.
Right.
Over him, there was a Corps Commander, General Mahmood. Now this was a localized affair. So certainly it is between Javed Hassan and Corps Commander.
If I may read another line from the book, just because these allegations are against you and I want you to be able to respond. He's called it an unsound military plan based on invalid assumptions, launched with little preparation and in total disregard to the regional and international environment.
I consider him a person who is by design trying to malicious propaganda against me. And I think he is not realizing what damage he is doing to the interest of Pakistan Army. Here is an operation which was such a successful operation, which gained a lot of its objectives. And here he is trying to undermine that operation. I think he is doing damage to Pakistan Army and its cause.
So are you questioning then that this is not a person of integrity who's
yes,
saying
certainly.
that?
Certainly he is not a person of integrity, because it is after that he was promoted Lieutenant General. He goes to Lahore. He is commanded a corps. Then he comes as CGS. He remains very happy with himself. Then he is posted as DG NAB. He is very happy with the whole circumstances. And now suddenly he is woken up that there is something wrong that was happening. What is his character? Is this the character of this individual? That when goodies were coming, he is very happy. Now he's suddenly woken up that everything was going wrong.
Okay, so here's a question then. He was a very senior officer in your military, promoted even after this affair. Are there loopholes in their system, in the Pakistani military system, that people like this who'd go with the flow and not say anything can come up to the top?
No, I don't think there's any. Every system, no system is 100% perfect. Judging an individual is not an easy job. Individuals, unfortunately, like him, exist, who switch sides, who play into the hands of somebody or the other. And
one more allegation from him that I want you to answer, because I want you to be able to have your say, which is 3 years after the affair, he tried to launch an inquiry, a GHQ study that you forcefully stopped.
I didn't get this point.
3 years after Kargil, the GHQ tried to launch a study, and he said he wanted to head a study to find out exactly what happened. You stopped it. You were the chief of army staff. You said, no way, we won't have the study at this time.
All nonsense. Whatever he's talking, I don't know what he's trying to remember now of those times. Who was he to start a study? I don't know. In what form was he entitled to start a study? The military has its ways. The military studies and analyzes through the Chief of General Staff, through the Director General Military Operations. Such analysis is always done, but this is not disclosed to the people. Operations of this nature are not disclosed. They are not public documents that we have to tell everyone that an inquiry is going on and all that. But everything is analyzed. We analyze everything. In the army, everything is analyzed, but depends on what position he was. He had no say or no right to start an analysis.
There is a report by the Japan Times. They're quoting a retired Pakistani nuclear scientist, and we're not talking about Dr. Abdul Qadir Khan, suggesting that during Kargil, you wanted to launch the Kauri missiles, but then you were told that the guidance system was faulty. Did such an incident happen?
Never, it never happened.
Because according to the newspaper, it's corroborated by 2 other nuclear scientists of Pakistan that the Kauri system did have a faulty the guidance system, but that the tests were declared successful by the military.
These are all nonsensical things, and I don't know why they are disclosed. If at all anything of that, some guidance failure of the guidance system occurred, which was corrected later, why should we disclose these things to the public? I mean, it's nonsensical. I think such people should be taken to task.
Okay.
Such things happen when you are researching and developing missiles on your own. Some things do go wrong, but that doesn't mean we corrected it. So what is the issue? It's perfectly fine.
So we've talked about Pakistan's relationship with India and the US. Let's talk about your aspirations as a politician now that you're going back to Pakistan. First of all, would you like to announce on this show when you're going back to Pakistan?
Well, I can't announce the date exactly, but...
The week, maybe? You want people to receive you at the airport, right? You want,
yes, of course.
Yes, so you want them to prepare now.
Yeah, at the right time I'll announce.
At the right time. Okay, we'll wait for the right time. We'll wait for the right time. Now that you're going back, if there are cases against you, and you are told that if you go back, there will be further cases against you, would you still continue and go back?
Certainly, because I know that the cases are all trumped up. They are all politicized. Maybe there is some judicial activism purely from legal point of view. The cases have no legs to stand. I know that. Okay. So therefore, I will go.
As somebody who has been very involved in Pakistani politics from different points of view, what does a post-election Pakistan look like to you? Who do you see winning the majority of the seats?
Well, the people of Pakistan are looking for a change in the political status quo. But if the elections, unless the elections are fair and impartial, and an interim government comes which is totally transparent, I see that the present status quo will carry on for another 5 years. But we need to bring about a change in that. And that change can come because the aspirations of the people are for a change. The only thing we have to ensure is a totally transparent and fair government, interim government, and elections held under the auspices of the military.
Under the auspices of the military, you said, and you've also said in other interviews that the military should play a role and should have a role in the background. What kind of role do you foresee?
In the elections, no role in the background.
No role.
They just should ensure security and fair play during the elections.
So now that you're a politician, if there was a military coup or attempted coup, would you oppose it?
Well, one has to see when such things happen. These are not simple affairs which can be decided off the cuff like this.
But you're not saying no 100%.
Well, it depends. What is the situation? I believe in testing everything from the gauge of Pakistan first. Whatever is in the interest of Pakistan, I will support that.
When you go back, how many seats do you think people will welcome you at the airport in drones, and what kind of scene are you imagining for yourself as you land?
Well, I presume that there will be support. I presume that people will be there to wanting to hear me and welcome me. I think that is the case.
And you're joining forces with who right now? Who are you
with
talking
nobody,
to?
with nobody at the moment. I have to create my own. I have to give momentum to my own party.
And
when
you think
that
3
happens,
months will be enough for that?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're ready to rock and roll in Pakistani politics?
Yes.
Well, Mr. President, thank you so much for giving
Thank
time
you.
to VOA. You were watching my conversation with General Pervez Musharraf. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to leave your comments and suggestions on our Facebook page. We look forward to hearing from you. Goodbye.